think it's on. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. I thought someone would introduce myself. Personally, I think introduction of speakers is a waste of time, because personally I think my talk's more interesting than I am. So instead of an introduction of me, shall I do a 2-minute course, what is exploratory testing? Would you like that? Yeah? Yeah? Okay, okay. Well, this strange thing happened. That guy over there is called Chris, and he said to me, oh yeah, by the way, during your presentation, please stay on the carpet. I'm a tester. What's a tester going to do when he hears not to do things? The essence of exploratory testing is that you have a goal. You want information. In this case, what's going to happen if I'm going outside of the carpet? And the essence of exploratory testing is that you don't make detailed test scripts, test cases up front. You don't document them maybe with one sentence. And you need one test case to start exploratory testing. And that first test case of me is to go outside of the carpet. I'm a bit nervous about it. I don't know what's going to happen. And we see what happens. And that gives me information. And based on that information, I come up with a new test case. So I don't know what my second test case will be. So first test case. Nothing really happened, huh? Yeah? Yeah? Okay. What could the second test case? Oh, there's another line. Let's see. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Cool. Cool. So, and any other test cases? Any idea?
What happens if you have your left foot on the carpet and your... So put your left foot on the carpet.
Yeah.
But then just touch your right hand.
My left foot on the carpet, okay. Left foot on the carpet and my right hand?
Yeah.
Okay.
Floor.
Okay, the floor. Oh yeah. Okay, okay, thank you. You're a good exploratory tester, because he just came up with a good test idea. Thank you.
Okay, so now take off your shirt.
You can always try the option of rolling the carpet up and putting it where you need it to be.
Okay, that would be a very good test case, but I'm not going to do that. No, I once did. We could, for instance, do this. Everything going okay? Yeah, everybody happy? By the way, the guy behind the camera, oh, he's waving at me. Okay. Oh, this is new information. Yeah, he's nodding. Yes. Okay. Okay. So I actually think it's for the camera. Okay, we found it out. That was my 2-minute introduction of exploratory testing. You got an idea what information you want to have. You need one test case, and based on the outcome of that test case, you get new test cases until you've got the information you want to have. I think that's exploratory testing. Okay, welcome everybody to the dark side of test automation. Are there any Star Wars geeks in the room? Ah, great. Thank you, thank you. For everybody who's not a Star Wars geek, I promise you it will be interesting for you as well, but sometimes you will get a bit annoyed, sorry for that. But I love Star Wars so much, I needed to make this presentation. Dark side of test automation. In 2019, we're doing a lot wrong with test automation, but you can do it in a right way. And I will show you how the dark side looks, but also that there is an alternative. We will talk during this, I will talk during this talk about Darth Vader, of course, Darth Vader. Luke Skywalker, who you can't do anything with Star Wars without Luke Skywalker. Of course, Princess Leia, R2-D2, my personal favorite, Han Solo, and Master Yoda. Is that what you expect me to talk about? Yeah, 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 yeah. For those people who said yes, I'm sorry, we're also going to talk about test automation. These are 4 of my colleagues. Probably you don't know them, but we made this presentation with the 5 of us. So I think we should credit them as well. When it comes to test automation in general, I would like to start with a story. It's not a personal story. Got nothing to do with test automation, but I think it's a very good story to introduce the dangers of test automation for testing. And it's about the Inuits, or Eskimos, I don't know how you call them in America, the Inuits. And there is something very interesting about the Inuit that was really amazing. The Inuit were capable of, when they said, next Saturday at 12 o'clock, I will be at that certain spot. Then the next Saturday at 12 o'clock, they were at that certain spot. Without any tools, without any help or something, in an environment that changed all the time. There were hills, then the next week they were gone. Sometimes you had zero visibility. It was cold, of course. And this was really unique. There were even people saying this could be the final proof of the evolution theory, because they've grown up in a different environment, and so they developed something that was really unique. And there was a lot of research where in their brain, in their genes, is this ability to plan so much up front and always take a different route. But Saturday at 12 o'clock, they were at that spot. This was really brilliant. And then something happened. If you got any idea what happened? They gave them watches. The introduction of technology happened. And watches, GPS happened. And especially the younger generation started to use these GPS. And absolutely, they were 12 o'clock on Saturday at that spot. Unless something else happened, and this is the number 2 reason for Inuit to die. The first one is of age. The second reason is that they ran out of battery. After 1.5 generation, the ability to navigate without GPS disappeared. So the introduction of technology destroyed a skill for a certain set of people. And today, in 2019, when I talk to some, not all, testers, I think we are starting to lose the skill of testing. We can all make our Selenium scripts in Java or in C# or in Python. We all know how to use Gmeter. And then I ask, what's your coverage? And they say, huh? What's your coverage? What's the test design technique you used? Yeah, that's something from ICQB, isn't it? Can't remember it. Some organizations, I think, are testing less good because of test automation. And that is what we can learn from the Inuit. So the introduction of technology can lead to the decrease of a craftsmanship. I think everybody in test automation should read this book. It's a very good read. You read it during vacation, got nice stories about the reasons why relatively more planes are crashing due to human interaction. So pilots began to unlearn how to fly a plane because the computer is doing it. The same happened in Holland, actually. We were very good in making carpets. Now, not anymore. We're very good in making machines that make carpets, but making a carpet ourselves. So it's a real good read. And I see that happening as well. And it's the so-called degeneration effect. And the degeneration effect is about 2 things: the automation complacency and the automation bias. And to give an example of this automation complacency, I was at this organization. I'm working as a consultant, and I was for a commercial interview at this organization, and they said, we don't think we need an automation consultant, test automation consultant. We have got this great set of 300 test cases running automatically every day. How cool is that? I said, oh, well, cool. What kind of tool do you use? I won't name any tools here, but yeah, we're using this and this tool. Okay, give me 2 days, and I got 3,000 test cases. 2 days, 3,000 test cases. That's cool. Yeah, but I will not test anything more. Yeah, but you have got 2,700 extra test cases. Yeah, but these test cases will test exactly the same functional path. Interesting. Okay. So what does it tell you that 300 test cases run every day? What is your functional coverage? What does it tell you? Do you know for sure that 90% of the things that customers do are covered by this set? I don't know. Well, they hired me. We brought this it turned out to be 24% coverage. And I know there are different ways to measure coverage, but I won't go very deep into this. And we brought this regression test set back from 300 test cases till 60-something test cases, and we raised the coverage to over 70%. So what does it tell us? A false sense of security. 300 test cases every day. It must be good. Yeah, but what's happening in there? You need brains for that. The other one, automation bias, is following blindly the information gives. And I would like to give an example. This is a 300 example, sorry. But the automation bias, this is Gmeter. It's a free tool for performance testing. And, if you don't know Gmeter that much, you see here a test plan. Hey, we've got a test plan. Cool. We've got a test plan. I will call it a test design. But okay, thread groups. And here we see something that looks like test cases. And I'm a manager now. And I see green check marks. Wow, that's cool. We can go live. We only got green check marks. The tool says it's okay. Hey, how cool is that? Gmeter is a performance test. I can see some people nodding no. Yeah, absolutely. You're absolutely right. What it's actually doing is measuring how fast a response comes. And here it says there comes a response, but it doesn't tell you what response. If you go one level deeper, the only response of all these green check marks is that you never entered the whole damn application itself, because you took the wrong password. So you tested all the time that you get the message that you didn't even logged in. So yes, I made this on my own desktop. This is not an example from a client. But this can happen with automation bias. You just follow the machine because you don't know what the machine is doing anymore. Of course, specialists know. But these specialists, we really need them. So one thing to round the introduction up. Over the long run, Nicholas Carr means automation, may diminish your existing skills or prevent us from acquiring new ones. And sometimes I would say, quote me on things, quote Nicolas Cage on this one. It's really brilliant. The problem with test automation today is mostly that there are some misconceptions, especially with people who are not in test automation. So they have an idea what test automation is and what test automation can do. And for me, that's the dark side. So a lot of people are attracted by the dark side. If you don't know Star Wars, the dark side is some kind of force that drags you away from everything that's good. And I think there are basically five misconceptions.
Give yourself to the dark side.
This was to keep you awake, Brian. I promise you. He said to me about half an hour ago, I'm not sure if I will be awake. You will, I promise you. Yeah. The first one, ever heard of 100% automation? Nobody? Oh, yeah, okay. Well, yeah, thank you. This is happening quite a lot, that people, that especially managers ask, automate everything, so then we can get rid of the testers. Well, if any manager ever says, well, let's automate so we can get rid of the testers, I'm a bit done with that statement. I always say, okay, fire me, that's okay. Buy a tool, fire me, and see what happens. there is this pretty famous case in the Netherlands of a bank, and you can easily find it on the internet, and they decided to get rid of the testers because they were going to do agile. Did that ever happen here? Or yeah, familiar? And it costed them an awful lot of money. A lot of clients left this bank because there were so many problems in production. Same thing with 100% test automation. It's not possible and it's not wanted. So let's see, what can we actually automate? If we want to have a percentage of what we can automate, then we need 100%. And that's a bit of a problem because the number of test cases you can do is about 100%. I see some people taking pictures, and I forgot to tell that in the more complex sheets, there will be a photo sign here, and then the sheet is complete. So forgot to tell that. There's an infinite amount of tests. So what percentage? That's difficult, but not every test is valuable. So 100% is every test that's valuable, that's adding value to get information. Okay, I have to stay on the carpet. I could go over on that carpet, but that doesn't give me any information about this carpet. So only the valuable tests. There are definitely tests you want to do once. I've been working on this mobile app, and within this mobile app we have some pages with just information about the organization, about the guarantee that they don't, that there could be things wrong on the website, things like that. Those pages will probably never change. So we're only going to test this once. The fact that this page appears will be tested more often, but the content will only be tested once. So I'm not going to automate if this text is still the same every time. So I'm not going to automate that. True or not? Sometimes you have these test cases that are really complex, that they give information you have to give back in another part of the test case, and things like the timing influence things. So sometimes it is pretty difficult or maybe even impossible to automate things. Tools are getting better, so this one is getting smaller. Next one is, sometimes you don't want to automate things, simply because you want to have a regression test set that's fast. So a small regression test set that won't take 2 hours, but half an hour. So, and then we have, and there the sign disappears, you have the tests you actually have automated. So I don't say that about 20% of the value tests are automated. This is different for every organization. But if you have this discussion about 100% automation, draw this and then start measuring. Because of course, the tests you want to do more than once, the tests you can automate, the tests you want to automate should be automated, absolutely. But 100% automation is a hoax. It can never happen. Second one. Some people think you can save money with test automation. You can quote me on this one. Please tweet about it. Say it to your manager. And if this manager says, "Who said this?" Oh, it's a very famous guy. Thank you. You cannot save money with test automation.
One of the guys yesterday said that in his presentation, and I really wanted to quote you.
Yeah.
I didn't want to make you feel bad.
I think I went to the same presentation. I heard him say it, and I really had to stop myself. Actually, I've been looking for this guy. Could you please come to my presentation? Yeah. But the thing is, most of the time they compare two things that are not realistic. If you do your regression test set every 2 weeks, suppose you do Agile with a sprint of 2 weeks, every 2 weeks manually, in that case you will save money. But that's so unrealistic that you will never do that. So, I'll come back to this later. This is not in line with the sheets, but I'll come back to it. But let's look at the test automation and cost. Suppose you're going to do a manual test case. that takes a lot of time, get your test data ready, execute it, analyze it, etc. So analyzing the outcome, is something we have to do as well. So that takes a lot of time. This is going to be a pillar. And the essence of software development is that we change systems. So we also have to change. The regression test will take a lot of time as well. Here we change the system, so that takes a lot of time as well. And then we're actually more out of time. And we do have little time for non-functional testing, which is pretty difficult to do without tools, by the way. Let's look at automated testing. The first test case takes an awful lot of time. You have to find the right tool, you have to get your test framework, you try something, doesn't work, you want to try it another way. So the first test case is really, wow, we did it. That's great. And adding more test cases is then really easy. Yes, by the way, the outcome, analyzing the outcome, here, these two are about the same size, but this can sometimes be even bigger than here because you get a lot of information to analyze. But you can use tools to analyze this outcome. So, and the regression test, of course, takes a little time. Absolutely. But then, kind of a problem starts, and that's the maintenance of automated tests take more time than the maintenance of manual tests. Simply because if you change an icon or something, I've just went to the AI presentation by Jennifer Bonine, and maybe there could be a solution for this, but in most tools, if you change something, you have to maintain your test set. So maintenance in automated testing takes more time than in manual testing. And then we get all these nice possibilities to do security testing, to do performance testing, to do even usability testing in a more automated way. And we're going to use these possibilities. So at the end, and that would be my message to this guy, we will test much more. We will have much more test cases. We will have higher coverage. We will test more often, every day, every sprint. I've been on a DevOps team where we did our regression test set twice a day. Why not more often? Well, it was enough. We will test much faster, of course, if we go to production within half an hour the regression test set. How cool is that? We will test other things. Try to do performance testing without a tool. I've tried to do it with this whistle and then 20 people, and then I hit the whistle and it didn't give any information. So we will test more with tools. That's so cool. And when I come to a manager with this thing where we test more often, how cool is that? I would expect this manager to be happy, to say, wow, Jaap, you did a great job. And then I tell him, by the way, we didn't make it cheaper. And then he looks like this. Yeah, it's... I forgot the sign, but it's fine. Yeah, a lot of organizations still see testing as something that costs money, so do it as little as possible. And with test automation, we can add value instead of make it cheaper. And that's a very difficult thing to convince organizations that they should think and work this way. Fourth one. Test automation makes testing easier. Doesn't all tools make things easier? Try to bake a cake without, what's the English word? Mixer. Without any tools. Try to make a bread without an oven. It's a bit difficult with this wood and everything. Use tools, it makes life easier, isn't it? Well, if we look at this is Selenium, by the way. Also not an example of a client, of course. We don't use examples of clients, but it's in Java, and here we see one test case, and the test case is for this screen. We use this for testing purposes only, for training purposes only, and here are some fields, and there is a defect in it, and you have to find it. And here we have got one test case, which is actually testing what happens if we have a test case, if we have a password which is less or more, what did I get? More than 265 characters long, and then it should give an error. Well, the error in the system is that each password has to be at least 265 characters. But that's only one test case. And on this field, I can come up with quite a lot of test cases. And then this field, then this field, then this field. So this can be pretty long, and a lot of typing, a lot of programming to get this relatively easy screen to test. So I don't know, finding this bug. We've tried this on many occasions, many courses. Okay, we divide the group in two. You're going to do it with Selenium. You're going to do it manually. Who will find the bug first? Who do you think will find the bug first? Yeah, of course. Oh yeah, that's another one. But so if you want to find bugs, do it manually. But if you want to repeat your testing, if you want to know for sure nothing changed, test automation is great, absolutely. But it doesn't make testing easier. It makes testing harder, but you can get, of course, benefits.
So based on my naked eyes, this doesn't have to do with TikTok for sure. It would be difficult for me to test the HTML colors of that gray background on the upper left versus the gray background on the bottom right. But an automated test could verify the HTML color code.
Yep. That's typically a thing you can better automate than you can do manually. So there are some test goals you should automate, and some test goals you should do manually. Absolutely, yeah. So, I've been to PNSQC 2019. Who has been there? Oh, everybody! How cool! And yesterday, Joel Gerby, no? Is he in the room? No. He didn't know I was going to use it. He said there's more to test automation than just automating tests. There's a lot of work to be done, and I think this is a very good sheet by Joel. There's a lot of work to be done in order to get test automation up and running. So does it make testing easier? No, it gives you new opportunities, but it doesn't make testing easier. The fourth one, with test automation, you can find a lot of defects. Some people say, yeah, you can increase coverage, which is, by the way, true. You can find certain defects, absolutely. But, and I don't have any numbers on this one. I would like to have, but not every organization is good in keeping up numbers. But if I see agile teams, I see them spending a lot of money on test automation. The testers have to make the test design, then they have to program it, and even developers within the team have to program also. So we have some time left to test new features because we are spending a lot of time on test automation, which could be a good thing. But then my question comes, how many defects do we find with the test automation? And sorry?
Not a lot.
Yeah, not a lot. According to this book, Journey in Test Automation, 9.7% of all defects are found with test automation. So we're spending a lot of money on test automation to find a small amount of defects. And again, I don't say we should not do test automation, but maybe we should not spend so much time on it. And most defects are still found with manual testing. If you got any numbers on this, please share them with me, because I want to make a statement with it. But yeah, I don't have enough facts to prove this, other than this one book. So just a consideration. There's a lot of focus on test automation, and I'm happy with it, and I make my money with it, so it's fine by me. But maybe even other problems outside of testing are bigger. In most of the teams I've been active in, the position of the product owner was maybe something we should have spent more time and money on than on test automation. So even to make it bigger. Last one, some people say that automation is tooling. Just buy the tool, just get the tool up and running, and then everything is okay. If you think that way, you're thinking in the wrong direction. You're thinking, you start with how. The worst thing that can happen to you is your manager going to some kind of IT conference, going to a stand of a software test tool vendor. Are there any test tool vendors in the room? I'm sorry, I apologize. Don't come with an X behind me. And this manager says, oh, I've seen this great thing, and it's doing it all by itself. How cool is that? Oh my. You start with how. The tool is the how. But of course, you first need the question, what do you want to know? You want to know about performance? Do you want to know very regularly what the quality is? Do you want to make sure that regression doesn't occur? Test data management. Test data management takes a lot of time. There are very good, simple tools. Maybe you've seen the lightning talk by Jason yesterday. There are very simple, useful tools for test data management. And we can probably save a lot of time here. Save a lot of time. Did I say that? Yeah, I said that. Security testing, etc. So what's actually your question? And then some organizations come to the why, and why do we do it in the first place? And of course, this is the wrong way to do things. We should start with why. Yes, this is based on this book, and I'm not going to throw 10 books with you, but apart from the first book I showed you, I think Start With Why by Simon Sinek is a brilliant book. Start with why, start with the end in mind. Know what you want to reach, then think about, okay, what do we want to know, and then you end up with tooling. Test automation is also this part. So there's much more to test automation than just tooling. Some people think that this is done once, and test automation is kind of a project with a start and an end date. If you start with test automation, you will start to iterate, because right here you got so much more information, so much more knowledge, what is possible, what's not possible, how to do it, how not to do it, etc., that you will do a second iteration, a third iteration. So if you introduce test automation within your organization, realize that it's not a one-time effort, it's an ongoing effort which takes a lot of time and money, but which can bring you much further than you are now. So these are the 5 misconceptions, and I still see them happening pretty often. Is this recognizable? Yeah? Yeah, I see a lot of people nodding here. Sorry, but you can quote me on this one. If this is said within your organization, you will have a very hard time. Should we automate at all? Should we use tests? Oh yeah, I see people nodding. Yeah. I've been rethinking this question in a way that I could say yes we can, but I didn't manage, so I came with yes we should, because we can improve testing, we can improve coverage, we can test faster, we can test more often, we can test different things. So yes, do test automation, absolutely. Don't get me wrong on this one. But then we need to know how the alternative of the dark side looks. So we have to find a way to do it in the correct way.
I'll never turn to the dark side.
It's pretty amazing that Luke Skywalker is actually saying this, because about a minute before his hand was cut off. And I think if my hand was cut off, I could never say a thing like that this way. Don't you think? Yeah. Yeah. But well, anyway, I think we need 3 things to be, well, actually it's more like 5 things, but you will see later. To be successful, we have to take all aspects into consideration in order to be successful with test automation. We have to realize that test automation is about testing. It's not about automation. It is about testing. And it is a socio-technical system. Most of the time by now, people start to get less energy and starting to heat up, and et cetera, et cetera. No, I'm not going to ask you to stand up and to do some jogging, but we will come to the more interactive part, I promise you that, because you will do a short survey how well you are doing on these 3 different things. Take all things into consideration. If you want to be successful with test automation, we need to look at technical side of the things, the organizational side, and of course the testing side of things. And for instance, the technical part, developers need to be on board for test automation. And that's not only because you need them to make this very complex Selenium script, which I cannot make either, but that's also because they need to program in a different way. Most test tools work with screen properties. Object properties, sorry. And they need to recognize that this certain object is the field name. And some developers, it's getting better the last few years, they tend to copy screen items, screen objects, and change some things, but not the name or the identifier. That's really a bad practice when it comes to test automation, because if you say find the field name and enter Jaap in it, and the name of the field is also in address and place used, then there will be Jaap in all these fields. So yes, they really need to program for testability. The API needs to be accessible. In some organizations, they say, yeah, our test environment should be as if it's in production, which is a good idea. But in production, quite often an API is not accessible. And for test automation, it would be very nice if the API would be accessible. So yes. Question, of course, are we going to automate on the UI, on the API, or on the back end? That's a question on the technical part. When it comes to testing, yeah, I also already used the word coverage. When I first did this talk, I asked to people in the room, the last time you got the coverage of your test set, is that more than a month ago or within a month? And some people said, I've never done that. I don't ask that to the attendees anymore, because it's not nice to come to that conclusion. But in case you don't know the coverage of your test set, you've got no idea what you're testing. So please, in case you would have said it's longer than a month ago, do it. Get the coverage clear. You need to have test goals. And of course, you need to have a connection with manual testing. It's not a very good practice to just have manual test cases and to automate these test cases one-on-one. Absolutely don't do this. Don't try this at home. Don't try this at work, sorry. Why? In manual test cases, quite often you have steps to create test data, to get to a certain point in your application. And if something is going wrong there, the whole test case fails, but you've got no idea why. So it takes a lot of time to analyze why things are going wrong. So how should you do test automation? As small as possible. The test case should be as small as possible, and every test case should test one thing and one thing only. Then you know what's going wrong. So there needs to be some kind of translation from manual test cases to automated test cases. And that's also a process you need to master very well. And there's the organizational part. Expectations, 100%. Automation, we're going to save money, etc. are here. And educational skill and support part. Okay. This will be the only commercial part, and we don't deliver in America, so maybe you should have let this sheet out. But we made a readiness scan. Is your organization ready for test automation? Even if you're already doing test automation, this can be pretty interesting for you, because maybe you will find some things that are not in place within your organization, which hurt a little bit. So we're going to do that. It's normally it's a quick scan of 32 questions. We're only going to do 12 because otherwise it would take too much time. And so we will do a short version, originally 4 domains. We'll do 3 domains. And we will first do a trial question. Please take out your cell phone, your laptop, whatever. We're doing quite good when it comes to time. And we will first do a trial question. Is Phil in the room, by the way? No? That's a good thing, by the way. Go to www.menti.com. And the trial question, by the way, is what is Phil Lou's secret home Wi-Fi password? And got 4 options. Well, the first is testing 1, 2, 3, because he's a testing geek. Shireen, 1999, because that's his first daughter's name and year of birth. Oh, the code is not working. This is, the code is here on the top right. I tested it last night, but my test environment was my hotel room, which is across the street, which is apparently different from here. So thank you for notifying me. The third option is this option because he takes security seriously, and the third option is welcome01 because it's the default password of his Wi-Fi router and has got no idea how to change it. So how do you judge Phil Lou is actually the question. Hey, we got an answer. We got already 6 answers. Okay, it's interesting. Oh, you've got a lot of expectations when it comes to security mindedness. Okay. Well, there are more than 34, 40 people in the room, so I'll give you some time. By the way, Phil knew about this, that I was going to do it, so... so sorry? Yeah. Well, the right answer is on here, but according to the GDPR legislation in Europe, I'm not allowed to say it. So I won't give the right answer here. No. Okay, this is actually pretty interesting. I'll take a photo for him. Can someone send it in? I want to see him running around pale. What are you doing? And okay. Well, technology works. That was the idea of the trial question. Let's go to the real question, and then we stay here on this page. Why is it not doing what I want it to do? Because I hit the wrong button. Let's first look at the technical aspects. The correct code is 233968. First question is there a separate test environment available for automated testing? Second question, are test data available for executing automated testing? Is the test object itself stable? And are there clear requirements for testability? And are they communicated with development? Yay, we got a first answer. And by the time one happened, then there's going to be more. I'm not waiting before I got 50 answers. Huh? I'm not going to discuss it before we got 50 answers. Okay, it's starting to tend a bit to the middle of it. With requirements pretty low right here, and test data, by the way, pretty good. Okay, is there someone in the room that's very proud of how they build test data within their test automation? Because a lot of people are doing it good, so there must be some people here saying, I would love to explain how we did this. Let's share some experience here. Yeah, it's a long way, so Yay!
So the way we build test data is we use our API, like we have a UI and API frameworks, and what we do is for testing the UI, we use the API calls to make the data, and then we go and use that for the UI testing if we want to set it up. We also have API tests that test a bunch of stuff. We also have SQL calls that go in and either inject data or delete data out, do whatever we need to get the test data that we need for the UI testing.
So you actually use the system itself to build test data?
Yep.
Yeah, okay, I love that way, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely, yeah. Is there someone who doesn't have good test data available and is having problems with it? And yeah, she there's this lady and she doesn't want to be seen, but we spotted you. Could you share with us what the consequences of this are?
We run in UI tests to create test data. We run in UI tests to create database.
Okay,
With the
you
test
use UI tests to create test data. Okay,
Yes.
and why is that not working within your organization?
Because it takes 4 hours.
Oh, okay, yeah, that takes a lot of time. If you use, for instance, an API tool to create the same test data, it would be much faster. Yeah, definitely. I fully recognize. I saw some people leaving. I always leave the best part for the last. So, their choice. Is there someone in the room who hasn't got very good requirements for testability, and could he or she share what the consequences of not having these? Okay, there's a lot. Okay.
So this just happened where we were assigned a ticket, and there was some documentation missing, and it went to production, and then we had a release bug, and then we had to fix it, and it probably sucked up I don't know, $900, $1,500 in man hours, and it was a small bug. More severe bugs, yeah, 10 grand.
And what is the link with the requirements for test automation?
Say that again.
What is the link with the requirements for testability?
It was the testability was there. Everything was
Okay.
fine. It's just we were missing one important facet of the requirement, and
Yeah.
without that one requirement, the bug went through.
Okay, yeah.
And it would have taken a technical writer all of 3 minutes.
Yeah. This man is dying to add something to the. Oh.
Our back end has an operator which maintains state of the system, and since it maintains state, when we want to test a certain component, we're fighting that state, and we made a request to the developers to say, can you give us a hook to tell certain things to go down or up so that we can test it? And they pushed back, says we feel that's a backdoor and we don't want to do it. So now we're fighting the product to try to get the state we want for the testing to occur.
Yeah, very recognizable. Yeah. Is there someone who has really good requirements for testability and would like to share that? Yeah, I see someone over there. Oh. Hey, Phil. Hi.
From an automation perspective, we put a big emphasis on just ensuring that the elements are, they have unique identifiers, and working closely on best practices and standards around that has been really valuable for us.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, the recognizable components is really important in this one, and it takes developers more time. So
isn't AI going to do all that for us?
Well, yes, there are some tools. I don't call them AI, which show that some good practices when it comes to development are not followed. We use this tool made by the people who also made a cube, Sonar Cube, and when it gives a green light, we know it's testable for test automation. So it's not AI, but it's a good tool for that. So that helps, definitely. Okay. Anyone wants to add something to this? Maybe someone who's very proud of something or has a question? Oh, we've got one over here.
Ready? You gotta turn around.
Throw it to me. Yep.
Sure.
So I think my team is sort of struggling with the fact that we work on something different than a lot of other teams. The other teams have come up with this great automation standard that will not work for what we do.
Yeah.
So we test, so now we have to sort of, I guess, create our own.
Yeah, are you using a different technology? Well, what's the reason why their standards don't apply for you?
They're doing real-time services and we're doing database stuff.
Yeah.
So.
If your context is different, your standards, your way of working is different. Yeah.
Right.
So you have to create your own, or find another team who is also working more on the back-end side.
Yeah.
But if you use a different technology, working on a different part of the architecture, then you probably need other standards. But please evaluate them often enough. So at least once a month, do we still have the right standards? Should we add something to it? Experiment and evaluate is, I think, one of the best practices to improve.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. I can't make it better than that, sorry.
No, it's okay.
Okay. Let's go to the second one. So get your phones again and let's look at the organizational part. In the present mode. Yeah, it's generating new code. It didn't happen to me before, but first question, is there enough budget and capacity available? I've heard someone complain about it already during this conference. Are clear and realistic goals set for the implementation of test automation? Is there enough knowledge available for tools, test automation in general, and test automation frameworks? And are the tasks and responsibilities concerned the operation of test automation clear? Okay. Ooh, the organization. We don't have very much answers yet, but it tends to be a bit low. Okay, and when we hit 50, then start to do some analysis. If we look at the general, the organizational part is lower than the technical part. Does that surprise you? There's so much focus on technology when it comes to test automation. But we see that this is different from, well, I've done it this presentation a couple of weeks ago in the Netherlands, and there they all complained that they didn't have enough budget and capacity available. That seems to be better here. Is there any reason for that? Are you aware of? And no, it's strange. But maybe you just got more money here. Yeah, I'm jealous. Can I have the? Yeah. 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 Okay. Can someone explain which arguments he or she used to get the money and capacity to convince the manager? Maybe someone can learn from those ideas. Anyone? No? I am a manager. You are a manager? Oh, sorry, my fault. Sorry. We don't basketball very much.
Yeah, no, I think I kind of lucked out, actually, because I report to our CTO, and he is very quality-minded. And so it's not a hard sell for me as a manager. I just get to, hey, I think we really need this. And he's like, okay, I trust you. So, so I don't know how long that'll last, but.
So the quality mindset on sea level is very important in this one.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
I've been at places where it's the opposite, and it's a very difficult case to make, for sure. Yeah.
Is someone having difficulty to get budgets and capacity? Oh, over here.
Okay, I don't think I can throw that far. All right, I'm going to try.
It's pretty robust technology, by the way.
Yeah, so I think it's not that my organization isn't quality-minded, it's just that they don't understand what it takes to produce quality, I believe. I'm in a new role at my company where I'm actually selling all of the stuff that we're talking about here to the executives and management. And so it's a matter of, in my case, I believe measuring what we can measure, take small steps, and see improvement. Because results really speak to executives. And without that, there's not a lot of trust.
I think that's very
That's my impression.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Yeah. Let's talk about the tasks and responsibility. What are the backdraws if tasks and responsibility are not clear? Does anyone have want to share something on this? No? Or maybe, we've got a... Yay!
Yeah, so where I work, so we've had automation for, built for years now, but we're actually at this stage where the organization has shifted several times, and the ownership of certain automated tests has kind of fluctuated. So there's a certain amount of tests kind of floating out there where no one really knows who they belong to. and so it's like some people are just trying to kind of push them one way or the other, or just begrudgingly accept them and like, okay, we'll take care of them.
Okay, yeah, it's more like a testing problem, I think. Than okay. Here's someone who wants to add something. Ooh. You're in the danger zone, Heather.
Well, there's not enough QA for devs. So the dev work coming out, there's nowhere, I haven't been in an organization where there's like a one-to-one QA to dev. So you never can get to that point of always testing everything that's coming out from developers.
Yeah, well, I've been in that situation as well, and what worked for me very well was getting on the DOD, the definition of done, that all test cases, all priority one test case, but we didn't make any other test cases, that were identified, should be executed before we go to the demo. So we got 3 sprints where we didn't go to the demo because not all test cases were executed. And I said, hey, wait a minute, but we got 5 devs and I'm the only one to test. This is not teamwork. This is not collaboration. This is not a whole team responsibility. So the developers have to do testing. And they said, but we don't want. Okay, you go to the manager and say there should be more testers. So I didn't have to say it. It worked once, okay, I have to admit that, but it worked. At least we got two tests. Oh, okay. Whoa.
I would like to add to that I think in my case the tasks and responsibilities are really clear because this gentleman was just saying I'm the only QA on the specific project, but the goals are not realistic. And like you mentioned earlier, management, as soon as they hear about automation and they get to see it, they're like, okay, we want 100% coverage.
Yeah.
And then so it's my job to try to convince them like, hey, this is not realistic. Let's focus on where the most value is. Yeah. But I also have 2 developers working around the clock on a project where I'm working half-time. So that means that there's a lot more responsibility coming my way. Yeah. But it's not realistic amount of work. Yeah.
I think you explained very well that realistic goals that are achievable on a short notice, etc., which are clear, is really, really very important. Absolutely. Yeah.
I have a story to share with everyone.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So I've worked for large companies, but right now, currently, I'm just working for a very small company. There's one myself. I wear many hats, blah, blah, blah. Test automation was not implemented, and basically I was trying to get an automation for a smoke test.
Yeah.
So every time they dropped code in, I needed to understand whether the environment was stable or not.
Yeah.
They chose not to do it, which that was up to them.
Yeah.
And I then figured out quantitatively and what it took me to do it manually versus an automation. And so that's what turned that around to identify, we're going to go put somebody on that so you don't have to spend, 2 hours to figure out whether the development release was stable for you to continue testing.
Yeah.
So
make it measurable.
It was just measurable.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Good story. Thank you. Let's go to the last one. And that is testing aspect. And the code is being generated right now. 396397. It's a scope clear, regression test, performance test, security test. Is there a professional set of test cases available? Is the coverage of the test set determined and maintained? And is test automation part of the definition of done? Yay, we got one. There's always a moment that I know it's working. Okay. If this stays the same, it's pretty interesting that this one is absolutely better than in the Netherlands. That's interesting. That was the lowest, I think. Yeah, definition of done is also quite often not very good. Could someone give an example where the scope of the test automation is really clear and how it helped to focus your test automation effort? Someone give a nice example. Someone who's proud of how things are going within his or her organization. Nobody? No? Yeah.
We have a mic. We have some test automation suites for doing some very complicated things that are hard, if not impossible, for humans to do for a complicated video product. And it was done and implemented, and it was done as features were being developed. And so it was testing new product, actually, and features of those products. And then after product release, it was entered into the regression suite. And it doesn't find bugs like your graphic showed regularly, but we were careful not to break things.
Yeah, but still, if it doesn't find bugs, it can add value because you have the certainty that it works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the point is the scope of those tests is very clear in that it's testing a specific product and specific features of those products.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So you get the information you want. Yeah. Does someone have an example what the consequences are when test automation is not part of the definition of done, and what the consequences can be? And if no one dares to tell, you're really better in basketball than we are.
So I think we have a fairly good test culture, but if you don't put it as part of definition of done, it just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
And what happened in our case is master became unstable, instantly. So the team lost all kinds of time trying to figure out why everything just stopped working.
Yeah.
So people just get caught up in the sprint cycle, and they just lose sight of getting the test complete, and that's why you need it on the checklist.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Automate the test cases within your sprint. That's a good practice.
And if I could just add that if the automation is part of the definition of done, then the acceptance criteria is also clearer.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So it provides a lot more clarity when it's included.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I think the acceptance criteria should always be part of the user story, but that's not a presentation, which I also have on my hard disk, but no. Hi.
I got one. In a lot of systems that's used by the public, increasingly there's a need to assure usability by folks with disability. I think many systems just don't have those type of requirements, and some of those is very difficult to lend to automation. For example, some of the states, I work for the state of Oregon, some of the tests that has to do with usability by blind people, we're actually working with the Blind Commission. Some of these things probably is hardly possible to be automated at this point in time. Just a thought.
Yeah. With AI, that could be possible with different colors, recognizing, etc., etc. So, but in my opinion, yes, test automation that you finish testing and that the test cases which are relevant are automated should always be part of the sprint, because next week you're on the next sprint, so your focus as a tester should be on that next sprint. And if you find defects, then the developers who are in sprint +1 should go back to sprint 0, etc. That's really really bad practice to do things that way. But it can be difficult, definitely. Okay. Anyone wants to add? Nice story here, maybe on coverage. I think nobody dares to tell that they've got no idea what their coverage is. They know my opinion on it. He does.
No idea what the coverage is. I think it's good, but I have no way to measure it.
Okay. Before a way to measure it, he said no, by the way. Yeah. Well, there are different techniques for it. You could do a technical coverage by, I use the tool SonarCube quite a lot. For it, I prefer functional coverage. How many of the functional paths do you have? You could also do coverage on the data set. How many of the data elements did I use?
Yeah, no, I'm familiar with all different ways to measure coverage, and I've done it in other places. We just have none of the tools installed in our environment to do that right now.
Okay. I would advise you to dive in it, but that's my opinion. Okay. There's someone here who really wants to add something.
No, I'm just saying we have a bot that's integrated with Slack.
Yeah, people behind you can't hear. So.
We have a bot that's integrated with Slack that gives us every time code's promoted, it gives us what our coverage is, and so for unit tests, we're always sitting around 50%.
Okay.
And then I think we're almost about 50% with automated tests as well.
Yeah.
So,
if you can measure both, you can very well set goals for. Do we want to raise our automation, or do we want to raise our coverage of the manual test? So really great that you measure that. Perfect. Yeah. I think the coverage techniques, test design techniques, will always be the center of testing, no matter what. So let's go back to the alternative for the dark side. So if you're going to do test automation, take all aspects into consideration. Make sure you look at the technical aspects, the organizational aspects, and the testing aspects. Why the testing aspects? Because test automation is about testing.
Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi. You're my only hope.
Of course, if we're talking about Leia, help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi. A test automation engineer cannot deliver good work without a tester. So the test automation engineer needs help on this one. And I was thinking, how can I explain that the best way? And I'm going to quote someone, so I should credit him. Very wise guy, Stephen Genway. Maybe you should invite him next year. And he's from England, so his English is better than mine. I was on a conference, Test Automation Day in the Netherlands, and he said this one sentence that really made me think. I've been doing a lot of test automation, and then he said to me, don't forget why we test in the first place. Don't forget why we test in the first place. Why do we test? Why? Sorry? Reduce sprint? Risk, reduce risk. Yeah, sorry, yeah. Reduce risk. Yeah, you were at the presentation before. Yeah.
Also to ensure that our customers are successful.
Yeah, to make our customers successful. So the question when it comes to test automation, how does this test automation add to the customer satisfaction? How do this test automation add to risk? Which risks are covered with test automation? I always say we test to give information to others so that they can make good decisions. How does this test automation add to this decision? So test automation, in the end, is a mean to an end. It's not a goal in itself. Testing is the goal. Getting information about risks, about how happy our customers will be. That is what we should do. So then we need, and it's all a very old-fashioned process, I know, but it's still worth showing. We need a test strategy up front. What are the questions? When are our customers satisfied? What risks do we want to cover? So what are our test goals? And from our test goals, we come to tests, test cases. I don't do these detailed test scripts anymore. Done that, been there. I hope I will never do it again. And then we decide, is this something we can best test manual? Or maybe we should automate this. And of course, if we're doing performance testing, we use tools. Of course we do that automated. But if it comes to end user satisfaction, there are not very much tools that really help us on this. Some with some colors and how big is our font and is the screen well shown on our device, etc., etc. But most of it is still manual. And quite often people ask me, what is the perfect ratio between manual and automated testing? I don't know. Your situation is unique. I know my situation is different. And we did a lot of test automation in this one project where we made this app. And it's an app for trading second-hand cars. And in the Netherlands, we've got 100-something apps for trading second-hand cars. And the Netherlands is really small. So this is really an app which, if it doesn't work, you don't come back. So, of course, we did a lot of test automation. Every change we made, we had to be sure that the app was working well. I also worked on projects, real big government projects, and before we went into production, it took 2 or 3 years, and we didn't do much regression testing, so we tested most of it manually. So it's different for every organization. But you should ask yourself this question, is it best to do it manual or is it best to do automated? And a few months ago, a test automation engineer said to me, yeah, but all tests are done manually first. I said, wait a minute, what did you say? All tests are done manually first. Before he is going to automate one test, he's doing it manually. Why? Because he wants to know that the test case itself works. So if it fails, that he knows where to look. So he says, you always do it manually before you automate it. That doesn't work for performance testing, of course. Then you do things differently in security testing. But for functional testing, he said, you always do execute your test case first. So the information you want to have from this test case is already known by you. So yes, if you want to test something rapidly, do it manually. But if you want to test continuously, then automate it. And I think that's also something that I learned from Steve. Rapid testing is done manually and continuous testing is done automated. So if it comes to DevOps, yes, automate. I see a question over there, and it's a long way to throw it. Oh. Okay. I was already wondering.
It's perhaps more of as much a comment as a question, and that is, I've seen business cases over the years for many projects, and I seldom see people justify testing and automation, automated testing post-development. And actually, what I think is one big asset for automated scripts is that after it's transitioned into operation, they can be used for smoke testing and for regression testing whenever there's upgrade of operating systems and things of that, or patching and things of that sort. And an example I like to use, and maybe some of you have already heard this in one of the sessions, is that when people upgrade operating systems, sometimes you just have kind of unexpected effects on the client end, and we have some critical systems in the state that it was just simple patching, but it resulted in certain critical system not usable for a few days, and that has really negative effects. And I think automated scripts, there's not enough people making the case that is actually an enterprise asset to make sure things work. And I'm just wondering how best to help people make the case that is not just for design, development, implementation phase of a project.
Yeah, well, the difficult thing without making a business case up front is that we have a lack of data, because we are making a system which has never been made before. So you can't compare it with anything. But the thoughts, but thinking, when you start with risks, which risk don't we want to have in production, can help you to make this case, not on a quantitative basis, but more on a functional basis. Every time we go into production, we want to be sure that the basic functionality of finding a car and finding who is selling this car is working. So making this business case up front is really, really difficult. So don't really have an answer on this one, sorry.
It's up.
But yes, it is about testing, and you have to decide how to test. Oh, you want to?
Just want to know, what's the tipping point when, okay, I've run this manual test, this is like storing things on test rails, I've come back to this the third or fourth time, should I automate it? Like, what's the tipping point at which, okay, it's worth putting the effort, you're using this more, like, is it twice, is it 3 times, is it 10 times? What do you consider the point at which to switch to automated, or try to make the effort to make it automated?
According to the literature, it's 3 times.
Okay.
But personally, I think that's the wrong question. I think the question is more important. How the question should be: how important is this test case to be part of the test, the regression test set? How important is it to have the information that this is working before we go into production? What's going wrong if this is not working? So I think the risk is more important than the number of times you do it, because by the time you automated it, you can do it 27,000 times without extra costs, without hardly any extra cost. So from theory, 3 times, but I think more risk analysis on this is more worth to consider.
Thank you.
We have a question over there.
All right, I'm not going to try to throw it. Are you gonna?
Where is it?
Whoa.
This is almost more of an answer or an opposite to your question, because we, for a while, were trying to do the whole, for every manual there is an automated test case. And we ended up with a huge suite of test cases, which we ran like every night, which took 8 hours to run. When you're trying to do regression, that's just too long. It's not, the developers need a shorter feedback time of when whether their changes are good or bad. So you need to decide what is the stuff we need to test that we can fit in a short time that's important, rather than just what can we test.
Totally agree on that. Yeah. We only have 10 minutes left, and I sure want to look at the organizational part, the socio-technical part of it. So I promise I'll keep you awake, huh? So, you're awake, huh? Yeah. I didn't come up with the word social technical system. That is actually a term very well known in system development, and then system, not IT system, but very big. A social technical system is a technical system that cannot be successful without the interference of humans. So humans need to be there to make it work. And let's go back to Star Wars again. Was the dark side, and maybe you've seen A New Hope, and there our real hero Luke Skywalker blows up the Death Star in his X-wing, and then he's turning off his computer, and by the force within him, he fires at exactly the right moment, and he's the hero. But he could never have blown up the Death Star without all his friends who helped him, especially R2-D2 actually in this scene. So yes, he's in the spotlights. In our case, the test automation engineer who knows everything about Selenium, who knows everything about Gmeter, who knows everything about Java, etc. Yeah, he's the one who is in the spotlight, and everybody's looking for those kind of people in the market. But he or she needs other people to be successful. And I think it's 4 groups of people that needs to be successful to have test automation successful. And yes, the first one is management. They need to facilitate us. They need to give us the budget. They need to make goals clear, etc., to make the endpoint clear, etc. Yes, the developer should be aligned in this. We talked about this, testability, test automatability. That's a very difficult word to pronounce, by the way. But the developer needs to be on board too. And yes, the tester, someone who is really good in testing, really good in coverage techniques, test design techniques, to make this very small set of test cases that really covers all the risks, and great. Within half an hour, we got the information we want. And yes, then the test automation engineer can be successful. And what I just said, a lot of people want to take pictures of this one because then makes clear what all the responsibilities are. So that's why I put this picture in it. And yeah, I see a lot of phones, so I'll wait a little bit. If you look at the previous picture, you see 4 boxes. And that's not the way you should look at it, because we should build bridges between these boxes, and of course also between these two. Yes, we have to help these managers to make clear goals, to make reachable goals, to make achievable goals. We have to make clear what kind of budget we need, what kind of other resources we need. Yes, this tester and this test automation engineer should communicate with each other. How do you want the test cases to be documented before we automate them? The developer and the test automation engineer should discuss about technical stuff. And maybe even we should not think in functional roles, but more in a continuum of different skills we need in order to be successful. And yes, me as a person, I can do these two. I know people who are good in these two or in these two, etc. So it's not that you need 4 persons, but all these skills need to be on board in your team. So apart from the readiness scan, you could also look at your team with this sheet. Do we have all the skills in our organization, in our team available? You don't always need them within your team. You can also work in a way that people from other teams can support you, or there's someone central in the organization helping you. But these skills need to be in place. It's a social, technical system. If the human side of it fails, the total system will fail. So if I can summarize this socio-technical part, I would like to start with this sentence. You all know it from the Agile Manifesto. I think you all know it. That's a pretty safe thing to think. It says individuals and interactions over processes and tools. When it comes to test automation, I would say individuals and interaction over technical possibilities. Humans make it successful. It's people over tools. And, oh yeah, almost forgot it. Yes, I was here yesterday as well. And maybe you've also been to the presentation QE role supporting DevOps in a smart way by Melissa Tondi. And she said test automation makes humans more efficient, not less essential. So do we have to be afraid for test automation? No, of course not. Embrace it. It will make us more successful. We can add more value to the organization. And this way we can help the organization much better. So what do we do to avoid the dark side? Yeah, not the most beautiful picture, but maybe it's the best one. Because we... This takes too long, sorry. To summarize it, keep investing in craftsmanship in testing. It's all about testing. Make sure that the testing craft skill within your organization as well. Make sure you don't become an Eskimo, you don't become an Inuit. Make sure we don't lose the skill of testing. Second, be realistic to your stakeholders. A lot of stakeholders expect things that are not realistic. Go to them. Discuss it with them. Ask questions. What do you expect? When do you think that we are successful? And if you think they're not reasonable with their expectations, say it to them. Be realistic about the goals. And I summarized the goals here. Test more often, more faster, other things. Yes, you cannot do DevOps or Agile without test automation. So you have to invest in it. But be realistic about the goals. Test automation is much more than buying and installing a tool. It is about the people side of it. Take all aspects into consideration. 3 things you have to remember. This morning you were told how to remember 12 things, so please, only 3. That could be possible, isn't it? Yeah. So exchange berries for the technical part, exchange the meditation with the organizational part, and the repeat part with testing. I've remembered 3 out of 12. And don't forget why we test in the first place. Automation should help us to make testing better, not replace testing. And the last one is test automation is a socio-technical system. It's people above technology. That's my summarize. That's how I would like to summarize it. And not before.
Or do not. There is no try.
Maybe you think after this presentation, oh, now I know what to avoid, and now I know how to do it. I'm sorry, you're going to fail anyway. I'm sorry. Test automation is so complex. You have to do it, learn it, find out, maybe I should have done that differently, and then do it again and do it again. Be realistic about that too, to management, to other people. We have to learn it. Look back at this presentation in 2 hours, 2 weeks, 2 months, and 2 years. And please, the only way to improve is experiment and evaluate. So that would be my last conclusion. By the way, I forgot to tell you, the question and answers is infinite. You got a lifelong guarantee on this presentation. Lifelong guarantee. By the way, it's my life. If you got any question, ask it afterwards. But also, no, don't give me a call. That's very expensive. Send me a message over LinkedIn if you got any question. More than once, more than 10 times even, I've done Skype sessions with people who were once in a session with me. Just say, hey, I was at your PNSQC session. I got a question. No matter when you're contacting me, I will answer that. So you got a lifelong guarantee on this presentation. And that brings me to my final conclusion, which is 1 minute before the end, so right on time.
The Force will be with you, always.
Thank you very much for your attention.